Good morning, Andrew.
Hi, good morning, Kristen.
So today we have Andrew Lunetta. He is the executive director, founder of A Tiny Home for Good here in Syracuse. And we all want to know what you do and how you do it if we don't already know who you are. So
Sure.
maybe you can share with us what you were doing on a day-to-day basis, typical day pre-pandemic. So let's go a month or more ago and share a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So what we do is we house individuals facing homelessness. So back in 2015, made the decision to start this small organization to build small houses for men and women facing homelessness. Understanding that what's available now is really difficult for men and women coming out of the shelter system. Untenable roommate situations, bed bug ridden apartments, things that just simply do not sustain any sort of stability. So I had the thought that tiny homes built on vacant lots around the city would do a lot to provide that long-term stability. And it has so far. So for our first, 4 years of operations, we've been hitting the ground, building houses, opening them up to men and women who have been moving out of the shelter system, and just providing a relationship for our tenants. And up until a couple months ago, it hasn't stopped. It has just been a consistent building and opening and providing an environment for our tenants to thrive and to really make long-term progress. And our typical day-to-day would be, my day-to-day is different from our other staff members. We always have some build going on. We always have a house under construction at some vacant lot throughout the city of Syracuse. Our houses are located all throughout the city. So there would always be construction happening. And my day-to-day would typically be starting at the job site, making sure contractors are there, making sure our volunteers are off to a good start. And I would be tool belt on, working for the first couple hours, and then often I would have to go do what most executive directors do, which is go raise money or write grant applications, thank you notes, that whole thing. And then at the afternoon would be a whole mix of working with our existing tenants, headed back to the job site if I was getting sick of the computer, or maybe taking someone out to coffee. And that was pre-pandemic, if that's what you want to call it. And it was delightful. And it was successful. And I've seen a lot of really positive cases with our tenants who are making long-term successes. So that was A Tiny Home for Good in a nutshell, and how we have been operating almost to date.
That sounds great. So it's not only the development of the place, setting up those relationships, doing the build, doing the whole construction part of it, but it sounds like it's also providing day-to-day support for the people who are there, kind of giving the community, right?
Yeah. To a certain extent, we're landlords. We're not-for-profit landlords. So our idea is not to be the ones providing the professional case management. A bunch of our tenants already have that with very successful case management organizations, but we're just there to know our tenants' names, to exist, to provide them with a place that's long-term, that's theirs. And with that requires that we spend time getting to know them. We
Right.
spend time learning their backstory. Our board of directors knows a lot of our tenants. Our volunteers know who our tenants are. And that requires time spent together. And it's one of the favorite parts of my job, for sure. And
Yeah.
I think also, which speaks to the success of many of our tenants who haven't been in a long-term place in many years.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just reading something this morning about actually giving someone their own identity of a voice and who they are, where they are, and how important that is. And it sounds like you're walking that path right there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I cite this story a lot, but it's rare that I need to do any sort of grounds maintenance at our properties. Our tenant, we're the landlord. We're responsible for the mowing and the shoveling and the trash pickup and all that. But rarely do I have to head out there to take care of that. Our tenants take on those responsibilities, and they don't have to, but I think it's because they care about where they are. They recognize that it's their own place, that they're invested in taking care of it better.
Yeah.
And that's just an unintended consequence of providing someone a place that's theirs.
Yeah. So I have another question. I know I'm going off script a little bit here, but your mission is it's very specific. You
Hmm.
know, it sounds like a well-written business plan. You knew you wanted to build, you knew you wanted to do it for this demographic. You knew, was there, I mean, that's a specific passion. Was there a trigger that led you to this, or was it just a consciousness of this has to be done?
Uh, I mean, it came out of my work at one of the local homeless shelters. I worked as a shelter aide there for a bunch of years and just saw guys who I got to know really well cycle through the shelter to crappy apartment to ER to back to the shelter. And just this growing understanding that what these men needed just didn't exist. A place that was their own, that was affordable, that was safe, that was all these different factors just didn't exist. And the private market just can't cater to someone who's making $800 a month. You
Yeah.
know, they can't provide them with housing that's safe and affordable if that tenant's only making $800 a month. So it was through that recognition that something had to be done differently. And that's where I saw an opening for a tiny home for good. And at no point did anyone ever tell me no, which probably wouldn't have stopped me in the first
Right.
place, but it definitely was just this reaffirmation that what we're doing makes sense.
Yeah.
And now in the midst of these very unprecedented times, it even further reaffirms my belief in what we're doing. The fact that our tenants actually have the ability to stay home. Our tenants actually have a place where they can heed the orders to shelter in place. Like, I really, really feel for the men and women who are living in the shelters or who are living under the bridges or couch surfing from friend to friend's house. How do you stay safe when your home is in the midst of dozens, maybe hundreds of other vulnerable people?
Right. And for the people who are trying to make their way and working who are now all unemployed,
No,
it
sure.
adds a whole other layer to it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel for each person who is facing homelessness right now, and the hundreds of people who are servicing them, hands on
Yeah.
boots on the ground. It's really really special. But that said, it just really reaffirms my belief in what we're doing.
Right.
And I see we have all of our tenants are still quite healthy. Many have pre-existing conditions. Many are in the vulnerable age group, yet are in a place where they can adequately shelter in place,
Yeah.
and that makes me happy.
So, so what are you doing today? How have you adapted and what's changed? And in your day to day, your typical day changing, but also in the services that you're able to offer.
So prior, I would always go out of my way to shake someone's hand or look them in the eye or give them a hug and walk into their unit and talk in there. Now, all of my tenant interactions are from, typically from their porch, and they're inside, and we'll talk and ask how they're doing. So that's probably the biggest change. Other than that, though, our construction still goes on as planned. I mean, what we're doing is essential and needed, and so we've continued with construction. Now it's slower because we're not calling our volunteers in, and contractors are working at a slower pace for sure. But the day-to-day really hasn't changed too much, just with a bit more care and a bit more care. Yeah, just slower, I suppose.
Yeah. But it's nice. It's still moving along. It's nice to know that um, you're able to still function even under these conditions.
Yeah, and it's nice. I'm glad we can, but it also raises internal questions for me personally. Like, should we really still be out there
Yeah.
building? Like, should I be asking our project manager and our grounds guy to be out there with me swinging a hammer? Should we have our electricians on site? And like selfishly, I look at the long game thinking like, yeah, we're going to have 3 more people housed once we finish up these houses, and we'll have them out of the shelter system and da da da. But like, I'm having this internal dialogue with myself on a daily basis, whether or not we should just completely close down construction. And I know every single construction management company, whether residential or commercial, are having these same thoughts in their head
Right.
as well. And I can justify it saying that once built, it's going to provide a service. But I can also justify it more by saying we only have like at most 5 people on site at once. And so, yeah, I'm glad we can continue, but it's not without its questions.
Right.
And I'm doing my best to make sure we have no more than 5. We won't have multiple companies at our job sites at once. But yeah, it's a weird, confusing time.
Yeah, you can't settle on a decision because it seems that every single hour or day, new decisions are
Yeah.
made that we have to deal with that are new rules or things like that. So you can't actually settle and say, okay, this is the way it's going to be for the build out of this entire house. It's probably, this is the way it's going to be today.
Yeah. I
We'll talk about.
suppose maybe if I had, I could very easily just say like, okay, sorry, electricians, please don't come in for the next till this is done. And project manager, we're going to furlough you for the next foreseeable future. And this and that, I could very easily do that. And maybe that would be the right move. I don't know. I think what I'm confused about is just like, there isn't any, I don't know. There's no one really saying like, do this as a construction firm,
Yeah.
like do this. And this is the way to navigate. And I don't know. As you can tell from my lack of articulate speak, I am still unsure as to if what I'm doing is the right move. But
Right. Which a lot of us are.
sure, yeah,
I
yeah,
think everybody's every single day making the decision, well, what do we do next?
right,
And, the day that I went into work and sent everybody home, I thought that was not my plan when I went in that day. It
hmm
was, okay, we're going to set up a schedule and we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And 3 hours later, I said, no,
yeah,
I changed my mind. That's it. But, it is just every single day assessing.
yeah. Well, I think that was the that was the right move. Like it would be crazy for you to be thinking, sure, every single day you are assessing, but you also made the conscious decision, like, okay, people are going to work from home,
Yeah.
and doing that is powerful, and I think makes a lot of clarity for everyone. So I suppose since I started this back in 2015, it's been a very clear like what I need to get done. Like, okay, I need to get a permit. Okay, once the permit's done, I need to find out where the utilities are. Okay, once that's done, start digging. And now it's a little bit more, well, I know what the next step is in the construction process. I know that for sure. But is it the most valuable right now to be going forward with getting the insulation done and starting sheetrock? Is that the most valuable thing we can do as an organization? And so far I've said yes, continuing with our construction is, but I don't know. I'm still kind of on the edge on whether or not that's correct. And I don't like being in that situation, but
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where we are.
So let's bring up empathy.
Mhm.
We've got empathy with yourself for
Yeah.
making decisions or trying to make decisions, but also how do you incorporate it into your business, your day to day, your staff?
I think, so I want to be very clear to always know the first name of our tenants, whether it's me knowing it or a board member. I hope to be at a position one day where I can't possibly know the first name of every single one of our tenants because we're operating at such a large level. But I hope that we always have a very good idea on a company level of who our tenants are and how our actions are directly affecting their well-being. And then I want to make sure that we're continuing to provide a space that's right for our tenants. And those are people who have faced homelessness. And that's very different than what is right for a young couple that just both graduated from law school and want to move downtown. Those are very different needs than some of our tenants coming right out of the shelter system. So I want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of our tenants. And I think walking with empathy and being very open to knowing that the story around our tenants is very different from that around our staff and our volunteers is the most essential thing as we grow and continue forward.
Yeah, one of the things that I teach in the empathy program is learning someone's story,
Hmm.
and how if you take the time and you're curious and you learn about the person, you immediately set up that connection that allows empathy. And you are living that. You are walking that walk
Yeah.
with knowing who they are, and something about them that allows you to support them and be there for them and be able to talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I had two folks in my life who pushed me to be a part of this kind of work from when I was a young age. So when I got to the shelter, something became immediately clear to me was that no one in the shelter had two parents in their lives who cared deeply about them, who wanted the best for them, who were available and even there. No one there had two parents in their lives who had that experience that I had. And that alone was enough to be like, holy shit, I've got it so good. I've got it so good. And I was raised under this umbrella of care and love that has allowed me to do what I'm doing today. Whereas everyone else who I'm giving beds to and passing out food to never had that opportunity. And that has definitely helped me to navigate some of the more difficult relationships that I've had with our tenants, where we've had to ask people to leave, or I've had to be patient with people who have had a hard time, taking on our properties, stuff like that. And it's just allowed me to like kind of step back and say, like, just breathe. They didn't have those same experiences that I did, all that stuff. But if I didn't take that on, if I didn't really embody that belief, then yeah, I would get frustrated in a real hurry. And I think anyone working in the social service field would get frustrated in a real hurry if they didn't believe fully that people are where they are today because they haven't had the same love or experiences or background that some of our more privileged people have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think what you're doing is incredible, and I love the energy that you bring to it. And obviously, the service is amazing, and setting up that basic support of a home, obviously, uh, is something that someone can build on. I mean, with that security, it's so much easier to
Yeah,
go out and do other things, and find a job, and become, what someone wants to be, in fulfilling themselves.
right.
So I think it's amazing, and I appreciate you, and I'm sure a lot of other people do also.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to put out there, right now, or in the future, that you might be planning?
No, I mean, we have a pretty ambitious build plan for the rest of 2020, um, with the rehab of two one-family homes and another three tiny homes to be built come the summer. Um, and always looking for support financially with volunteers, whatever, to make those projects come to fruition. So that's something that I'm always kind of fishing for. But no, that's it. Just an appreciation for everything that we've been able to accomplish thus far, thanks to our supporters, and that we have 21 people who are happily housed and safe because of the support that we've been given to date. So just to thank you.
So, if anyone wants to volunteer or donate or anything like that, should I be pointing them to your website?
Sure. Yep. tinyhomeforgood.org. All the
Okay.
information on how to contact us, to volunteer, to donate is right there.
Okay, I'll put it up with the video.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you so much. Okay, take
Yeah.
care of yourself,
Okay.
and wishing all good things for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Back at you. Okay. Bye
Okay.
now.
Bye.